So the topic here is networking. So let's first just start real quick. And my hope is that for the sake of efficiency and modeling to the people where we're trying to go is to be short and concise with our points.
Maybe quick intro, real quick.
Yeah, so yeah, the first question or the first topic is just who you are and what is your role in the music industry or relationship to the music industry.
We'll just go down the line, man. Finish up. All right, hello. I'm Sage. I've been producing for 25 years, beats mainly, you know, and been a part of a lot of projects through the year in Eugene, through the years in Eugene, and then basically took them out. More recently, last 6 years, like We Tribe, went touring, did that whole thing. Been a part of a lot of different cohesive projects. So networking is a huge deal with it all. So that's obviously what we're going to talk about. But there we go. I'm getting louder and louder. Thank you. I can hear myself now. Oh, that was weird. All right, here you go.
Hi, I'm Shay. I'm from Studio 541 Productions, and actually my longer history is coming in from the nonprofit sector. So I've done a lot of fundraising, a lot of event production within the nonprofit sector, and over the last several years, just increasingly, I've become more involved with doing music-based event production, and I've grown up with musicians. My husband's a musician. We have a music studio on our property. And just recently this year, we're launching a new project called Live from Studio 541. And it's a Tiny Desk inspired episodic video series that platforms and creates like a space for local, regional, or touring musicians coming through. These guys were just in here not that long ago, and Five was in there. And it's a really great space to really just highlight in an intimate space, a really good connection with who we're capturing on film, and the fabulous Joy LaFleur is part of the interview component of that series. So it's a lot of fun, and we're going to be launching sometime at the beginning of June, and so stay tuned for that. And if, you know, I'm always open to ideas for other artists as well who might be interested in platforming themselves in this way, but I'm all about collaboration and networking. In the nonprofit sector, in the business sector, in the music community, it's all about collaboration and networking and partnership for like creating growth and support within any industry. So I'm really excited to be here and connecting with all of you fine people. And here's Joy LaFleur.
I'm so glad I'm in your sector. I'm Jorah, and I'm a spoken word poet by origin. I have evolved into being an event MC even more often than I'm a poet. Here in town, over the last 13 years, I've been running the Eugene Poetry Slam. I often get hired to MC other events, and oftentimes those events involve music, but not always. I myself, as a little poet in my late teens and early 20s as a spoken word artist, I was often performing in between musicians, and that was a really good place for me to develop as an artist who loves music but is not a musician, because when people have come to hear bands and they had no intention of hearing poetry, and maybe you're the only woman on the stage and you have to get up in a bar and be like, here's my poem now, like it's a really great space in order to develop chops. And I think I've sort of carried that forward into holding space for musicians when they perform. I love being a hype woman. I love kind of creating that container, being that glue for a show. And it's an exciting venture to now move into working with Shay in the context of getting to interview musicians, which is, so we've started a segment called Musicians and Pie. So I get to eat pie, right? And speak with people on their craft, and it's a really exciting new venture in combination with Live from Studio 541.
What's up, y'all? My name is Skyfi. I'm from right here in Eugene, Oregon. I am a rapper, singer-songwriter, and I've been doing it for half my life now, since I was 15 years old. Completely funded. I don't want to say self-made yet, you know what I mean? But in a way, and I've sort of built a foundation from collaborating simply with like-minded individuals, and there's a certain amount of synergy that you get from getting a group of people in a room together, and you get ideas that never would have existed had it not been for that exact experience right then and there. I live for moments like that. It just so happens to be that I think musicians are the coolest people on earth, and I'm just honored to be here tonight. So yeah, anything else you want to know? I'm sure we'll go around a few more times. So Mike, we'll take it away.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw this question out to whoever wants to kick it off. What are some examples of projects or partnerships or other opportunities that arose directly from networking? And what was your approach to making those connections?
I'm told this is a good Shay question, so I better come up with a great answer. Well, I mean, honestly, like, if I think about every pivotal moment in my life, as whether it's in school or a professional endeavor or a personal desire, it's all been shifted by meeting somebody or having a connection with somebody through something. And so networking and collaborating and meeting people through that has been life-altering. It's led me to travel all over the world. It's led me to start on this crazy path of starting a film project in our music studio. You know, just by being around and surrounded by artists and musicians for so many years of my life, and not being a musician myself, it just got to be time for me to like stand up and figure out how can I, besides showing up to shows and creating events which platform and highlight artists, what can I do beyond that to support our local music community? And there's such a rich scene here of super highly talented musicians across genre that I wanted to be able to utilize what I've learned from my work as a teacher, my work as in the nonprofit sector doing executive directing and program management and project management, and apply that to another format which highlights all the amazing creatives that we have in our community.
So can I ask you a follow-up question to that? Because the concept of the network is not just a gathering of musicians, right? The concept is to try to get photographers and videographers, content creators, merchandisers, booking agents, marketers, right? And I put out a video recently from a segment from the network where how I talk about we don't have a lot of, for example, managers and booking agents and people with those. But I talked about coming through and discovering those niches, discovering what it is that you're good at and how you can be a part of the movement. And so from somebody who is not a musician, but who loves the music scene, how did you find your niche within that, knowing that you weren't going to pursue a musicianship, that wasn't your calling, but that you knew that you wanted to be connected with it? How did you make that transition from taking the skills that you had to like deciding you were going to apply that to supporting the music community, and like what were maybe some of your first few steps of making that transition?
I mean, honestly, event production is key. I mean, I do a lot of fundraising in the community, primarily for women's health and safety initiatives. And when I started to do larger fundraisers that weren't attached to the nonprofit that I founded and ran, but that were like independent, where I could select exactly what I wanted that event to be like, I wanted to incorporate music. In order to be able to fund that event and be able to donate 100% of the proceeds through ticket sales to the nonprofits that I was fundraising for, be able to pay musicians, because I do not believe in asking musicians to play for free, but having all of that overhead covered, it really inspired me to go into the local business community and talk to local businesses and approach them about sponsorship of this event, which includes musicians. And I think there's like a really natural relationship there between musicians and local businesses and community-driven efforts, whether it's through social justice movements or whether it's through supporting our local nonprofit sector. But having all of those three entities feed into each other through businesses attaching themselves to a show or attaching themselves to an event, which then supports the music community and then creates relationships between that musician and that business. The business shows up to the event, they create relationships, and then my job as the person that's doing the event production for my sponsors and for the musicians that are on my lineup is to draw those connections, make those connections personally, introduce the businesses to the musicians, have the nonprofits be introduced to the businesses, and have the nonprofits be introduced to the musicians, and have everybody then looking at how event production or the concept of Live from Studio 541, because we have a sponsorship model attached to that as well, how all of those three things can come together and support each other individually in their own personal or individual efforts, but that it also helps support the larger community as a whole. And so I feel like that's what I've taken from many different professional experiences that I've had in my life, and how I can apply that to supporting the local music community.
Okay, if we could go sci-fi here, I want to kind of stick on that same subject. Sci-fi came out the woodworks for me personally because I didn't really know him, and as we got to know each other, he kind of shocked me one day, like, and pulled out a picture of when he was a teenager, and we did the K-Duck dance at the Lane County Fair when I was still on K-Duck, and he had that picture. He was like, look, he's like, our paths have already crossed, you know what I'm saying?
I set that up on camera, by the way, which sounds creepy, but it was perfect. It was amazing.
But the reason I want to direct it towards you, because you, to me, are like a hardcore networker. Like, you made sure you were going to do a song with me on your album, And when you've come to each of these networking events, like, I don't know more than anybody else, in between the events, you've met somebody, you've worked with them, you've released content from that. Like, what's your approach to that sort of networking? Like, how do you approach that?
Man, a lot of the times I tend to come to an event, like I said, if there's a collective amount of people that have similar agendas and furthering their goals, putting themselves in a better place, I just know that good things come from that, and I put myself in a position to just be there. And a lot of the times the people that I meet, it happens organically. I'm on the stage somehow with, the greats, So I tend to just make it conversational, the people that are going to be around are going to be around, and everybody can't go, So I think I tend to just gravitate naturally to people that I collaborate with.
But I think this is one of the differences, and I'm trying to make this practical for the people who might get value out of this. I think a lot of people recognize the good that could come of it, but the difference is that you actually do the ask. You actually, do the ask. Hey, what do you think about collaborating on this project? And then the follow-up and whatnot. Like, is the ask natural for you, or is there a sort of a process you have to go through to, break out of your shell to make the ask?
You might have began that process for me, because a lot of it was, in my experience, is consistency. I would hit this man up in the MySpace days. I'm trying to rock with the gangsters, I was really fanning out and trying to get on this record that I didn't know I would eventually get. It would just take time, and I had to be, in my opinion, I had to reach that doorway. I had to, I think, put in a certain amount of time working on my own craft before I worry about somebody else making my song, getting me in a position where I could just get on. That's fly by night. I want to do this for the rest of my life. So, I don't know. I feel like the more ingredients in the pot usually works out pretty well, and I don't know what I would be doing if it wasn't for this. So, Yeah.
So
show up is half of it. And
Sage, I'll direct this question towards you. Like, can you tell us what some of the keys are to effective networking? Like, effective networking. Like, what are some of the keys?
Well, I would say, like, what Sky said, like, just being consistent is so pure, man. Like, that's true. You just gotta keep showing up, keep coming at it, keep bugging people if you got to, keep showing them your product, keep coming doing the shows, and people are like, damn, that dude already sick. You know, that one there. Another one I want to talk about too is personalities. Like, some people you can work with and some people you just can't. And I've learned that through time, just so I gauge someone I'm thinking about working with. First of all, I like content first. All right, I like what he's doing. He's speaking about something good. You know, like, I have certain ideas I'm gonna want to work with. You know, and some I'm like, right away, I'm like, nah, him and I aren't gonna, or her and I are not gonna flex or do anything good, you know, like, and then personality, like when I'm talking about, can I even get along with this person? If they're gonna come up in my studio, is this person an asshole? You know, like, I can't work with assholes very well, you know what I mean? Like, if they just have a good vibe and I just sit down and conversation just flows, it's not awkward, I'm like, okay, like step 2, you know, like, I'm slowly working through it. And then, like, can we speak about money? Is money easier to talk about? You know, some people that's a little weird, or maybe they're kind of shisty. I don't like that. I like it kind of like, hey, if it's me and you, that's 50-50, right? You know, like, it's easy, you know, so I kind of look for that. It's like water, it goes down the path of least resistance. So I look for, like, joining factors that are going to work the same way like that. If it just flows, it's meant to be. If it's just like upward battle all the time and never works out, blah, 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 it usually doesn't make it to the finish line. You know what I mean? And like certain people, it's just like magic. It just happens. The next thing you know, this project's popping and like it's getting good response, and that's what I look for. That just, it's meant to be, you know? So if that answered that well enough.
Yeah, so one of the keys, it's gotta be a good fit, and there's no need to force feed it.
Yeah.
Right? If it's not a good fit, don't waste your time, move on. Right? Jorah, you want to hop in with a few more like keys to effective networking?
Well, one of the things that stuck with me that you said from the first event that I appreciated that you put focus on was the idea that when you come to an event that is about networking, it's about exchange. And exchange is a two-way street. So it's not just about this is me and this is what I'm trying to accomplish in terms of like what can you do for me, but it's about what might I be able to do for you. So I think that really, you know, in terms of whatever metaphor we're going to use for these neural pathways, like we have to see the way that, you know, it's not, when I think of networking, I don't even only think about collaboration or what I'm trying to achieve. It might be that I have a good chat with someone and they're looking for something that I don't do or don't have, but I know somebody else in the community and I just help make that connection. And that's a beautiful, that brings me joy. And so I benefit as well. I have a feeling of joy based on that. And so I think it's like networking is not, and coming to events like these for me, it says much about the feeling of just like who's in the community, who's doing what, how can I, you know, just kind of keep my Rolodex, you know, my Instagram, my whatever the modern version is of like, oh, I know people who do stuff, because it may not all arise on the same night. So I really think, you know, just being interested in connection as a principle, in as much as I have this very targeted, I'm only here to try to like achieve this thing. I think that level of openness is definitely part of what, honestly, just that I enjoy, but I also think it's very functional and very practical, because if I refer someone, then that, just as you were saying before, you're looking for who shows up. You're looking for who refers people to you. You're sort of building that feeling that, yes, I do want to see you succeed. And that's not, you don't do it because like it's not a like, oh, you and then me, you know, it's just if that is a spirit of generosity that is operating within you, it is going to come back around. It just is. That's how it works. So yeah, I really love that you started us off that way.
Yeah, and to then I think come up with one more point that you know, you have your in-person networking, your direct networking, the shaking hands, these sort of things. But networking is constantly emotion. So when you go online, like, for example, and I'm posting a flyer or video, something for the network event, right? And you know, this is a free event. There's no exchange of money. This is really sincerely me trying to bring value to the community, because I know that if I can take some of my expertise and it can help lift up the scene in the community, it's going to benefit me as well, right? So there is a selfish component. I want to lift myself up by lifting everybody else too. But so when I'm putting that out there, and for example, like if I film something for the network, and I'm putting out that soundbite, I'm taking the time to edit it, I'm taking the time to try and push it and put it out there, and the person who's on the video doesn't respond or doesn't share or whatever, what does that say about the exchange of value? That's also networking, or I should say anti-networking. The point that I'm trying to make with that is it really is about relationship, and that starts with, if somebody's going to take the time to not only just put your content out, but even just a comment, like honor those. Like somebody, is taking the time to come out to the show, like you honor that and you exchange attention. So then what's after that? It's like, oh man, that person is, constantly on my feed, like responding to my stuff. I want to go check out their music. I want to see what they're doing. And that's really the key that I want to bring up, is what networking is not, is seeing seeing somebody put on a song, hopping on their feed in the comments and saying, hey, check out my new song. No, this is not the time to make it about you. We don't got a relationship or a connection. Don't be on there hollering about check out my new project. That's your time to build relationship, and not even mention that you do music. It's just to say, hey, I like that. Good job, good stuff. And you do that a few more times, and I guarantee without you having to ask, they're gonna come check out what you do and they're gonna wanna support you. So it's about you giving it first without asking, look at me, look at me. And when somebody takes the time to like come to a show and take pictures of you and put content out for you, honor it, figure out a way to toss that benefit back. Yeah, get some love on that. So with that, let's transition into, I'll pass it to Shay. And what would you say are some of the pitfalls, some of the dangers of networking that we should look out for?
Dangers.
What are some of the stumble and falls that we might take along the way?
That's a really hard question. I could speak from a personal sense, just because of who I am personality-wise. I tend to be like just a lover of all people, and it's taken me a good long while in my life to figure out who is seeing that about me and wanting to be attracted to my energy because of that, and because I am a really giving person, and knowing when it's time for me to give and then when it's time for me to hold back with no, negative feelings, but just like, having some good boundaries. So that's from a personal level, something that I've had to learn. And then also I just think in a broader aspect, there's a way to really burn yourself out with networking. Because sometimes you can get into a networking mode where you're just networking, where sometimes it's just about creating connections with people and establishing relationships. So taking it a step beyond just the networking piece, and also valuing the real importance of establishing consistent relationships with people that's based on trust. So that when you're out there and you're connecting various individuals together, that person then can trust the referrals that you're making, because they know that you've built up that relationship with that person. So if you're sending them your way, you can entrust that that's going to be a great referral. So I think that that's another component, is really taking the time to go beyond just that initial, hey, what do you do? This is what I do. Oh, hey, let's collaborate. But like really investing some time and energy into the people that you're feeling that natural connection that you talked about, right? When you just meet people that you have this like, dude, we can totally vibe out on this. We're on the same playing field. You can feel it immediately when you're in a space like that with somebody. And so when you feel that, that's where I've learned to invest my energy into that, because I know that what I'm communicating is going to resonate with them, and then advancing that relationship so that when there's another opportunity when I'm networking where I meet somebody new and I think, oh, hey, this might be somebody good to like connect with that person. So I think it's also just making that investment of time beyond just that initial, like, you know, more surface level networking.
Which I'm honored to definitely be a part of, because since we connected, we've hit the ground running, and it's been nonstop momentum forward.
They're in my whirlwind
But
at the moment.
good laughs, yeah, but good laughs and just good vibes. It's not all like tense or weird or all, It's like we're on a good journey. And so let's go ahead and start down there. Let's pass it just one more time before we close up. And once we close here, I'm gonna open up for the floor for anybody who has not been here before or just has something on the table to basically come introduce yourself, talk about a project that you have going on, how we can support you, sort of what you bring to the table that's maybe able to support other people's ventures. But we'll close off with this question. What are some very specific, practical steps that either people in the audience or people watching online can take in terms of networking?
Okay. I was thinking about this earlier, and this relates. But so basically, in anything, you have ideas. You have an idea. I have this great idea how I want the beat to sound. This and this and that, right? Or the whole project. And one thing I want to like kind of present is be open to change. You know, like when you work with people, and the more people you work with, the bigger the group gets. The idea of what's going to happen, kind of like, it's evolving. You may have started here and it ended over here. So I guess I'm just kind of trying to present, like, be open to allowing yourself to do things different. Be open to new ideas. You know, that's one of the most beautiful thing I found with networking, working with everybody is like, man, I used to think a certain way and I'm actually thinking different now because I've worked through these projects. I've had growing pains. I've had exciting moments, you know, like I've done things I would have never done maybe 2 years ago. But because I was open and allowed to change, now like I feel like a better person, a better musician, like better at collecting with people, you know. And the other thing I was going to say is there's lots of different styles of how people do this. You know, like Sky, he's like, go. You just keep coming at people. I'm more laid back. I'm the opposite. I'll lay back and watch you for days, and then I might, yeah. Well, it just seems like I'm picking up on it, you know, and I love that. It's like enthusiasm. Like you're the enthusiastic collaborator, and that's cool. I dig that. But there's people do it different, so you kind of gotta be aware how to work with, you know, speak to somebody's listening level and listen to their speaking level. You know, work with individuals individually. You know, it's gonna be a different journey every time you work with somebody. So be open to that, you know, allow yourself to change and grow, you know?
I'm going to give it over to you, Fabulous, because I know you always have good things to say.
The question was practical steps about networking. I guess I'll just kind of make 2 points. I have to say that as a performer myself, I guess my experience of networking, it feels a lot like marketing, where it's like we want to put marketing in a box. Like marketing happens here when you do an advertisement, and it's like marketing is everything you do, right? Everything is marketing. So I feel like everything is networking, and for me more than anything else, opportunities for collaboration, or if I'm at a show and a future show arises, it's usually someone has seen me do the thing I do, right? So I think there's a lot of that just like rhythm to, I am putting myself in a space where people can see the thing I do. I think that has been more of a successful networking in a lot of ways than a networking event, although I very much appreciate like an honest to goodness, like we are here to network. So I think just, you know, being willing sometimes to do a show or a project for the networking value, you know, recognizing maybe which I'm not trying to advocate for like, do it for the exposure if there isn't any, because that's some BS that every artist gets pulled into, right? But sometimes there honestly is an opportunity to put yourself in front of a different group, and that is really going to be valuable. So I look for that value as networking in performance itself. And then the second thing I was thinking about with this is kind of like, partly because I'm not always so good at this, but to have a clear understanding of what you might be trying to currently achieve and what your budget is. Even if that budget is zero, just so that you're really clear on it. So that if I'm speaking to someone, I have a project, let's say I'm a performance artist and I want someone to record me, I need to go into that conversation with the honesty and integrity about like, this is my budget, I either can talk to you about numbers, or hey, I don't have a budget, the best partnership for me would be with someone who's like new at their recording game.
I don't think I could articulate it even better than that. But I would say, in my own experience, simply the best people, the best relationships that I've made in my life have always been from the least suspected moments to the most seemingly random place in time, the grocery store, that whole experience, right? So with that, I've kind of learned to, when it comes to networking and pushing my music, it's really less of a push than I ever gave it in my life. Especially when I would have been a bit, 15 years old, just coming into it, just like, hey, everybody should check out my music because it's fire, right? Like everybody's music with SoundCloud now. Yeah, everybody has music out. So to me, I come at it strictly from a relationship level first, and I assume that you are somebody that will be in my life for like decades to come. Like I try to treat it like that with people, because you never know who's who, so yeah, I hope that answers the question and kind of bookends it. Yeah.
All right. If I was going to end it off with some practical steps to networking, number one, get exposure by exposing. Okay? So find some people within your tribe, or potentially within your tribe, as you're building that relationship, and share their music, right? You got to see some of Brendan's photos, which are dope. So go hit up the Spin Cycle page, comment on some of the photos. Not like, check out my photos too, I do that, go to this.com. Just show love. And as you do that consistently, people will take notice, and they will then discover what it is that you do. Don't worry about how long it takes for them to discover what you do. You just share and trust in the principle that you will eventually gain exposure by exposing. That doesn't mean that you hop on and expose stuff that sucks just because someday, no, you gotta actually be sincere and authentic and find what it is that you like, and find people who are on a vibe and a wavelength that you can have a sense and intuition like, man, I think that might be somebody who I'd like to tribe up with. Let me feel that out. Let me feel that out by giving first, by exposing what it is that they do, by taking the time to discover. So that's one thing. Another practical step, I think, is I would really like to see more direct networking with businesses. I think that there's a lot of potential there to be able to, for example, you got an upcoming music video project. Like, what are some businesses that you can network with, and how can we make it not feel like just a marketing campaign? Like, I'm not talking about just drinking a Sprite in the music video to be able to, Sprite's a sponsor, they're gonna pay me this much to have a, no, I'm talking about what businesses can be in your tribe, and you figure out through a relationship how to mutually benefit one another. And we've been working with recently like some really dope businesses that have been coming out to the filming that we've been doing, and just trying to figure out ways that we can help expose each other's brand, right? So I'd like to see the interface between musicians, content creators, and businesses. And lastly, just to get back to this principle of tribes, we're all the human race. We're all one. On a deeper level, yes, but the practical point is that you can't please everybody, you can't get with everybody, you can't work with everybody. Like, find your people. And this room, this event, I've already got a ton of new business relationships, a ton of new friends, a ton of people that I just super appreciate. I've got other people that just because they came in the room don't mean that I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like if we don't catch a vibe, like it ain't automatic, but you don't know who's who until you actually come and are in the room, you know? So be looking out for your tribe, and hopefully to some extent, you know, we'll be tribing up with some of y'all. All right, let's give it up to our panelists. This is something that we're going to continue to do. We're going to come up with a theme, a topic, and experts within that particular theme. Let's say it's booking and touring, which is not something that I have expertise with, so I want to be able to find some folks to do. Let them have a panel, let them bring value, let us figure out how we can help bring value to what they're doing and just keep that sort of intention going.